Okay, I'm going to get started this afternoon by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online as well. This is a 3-hour course where I'm going to be introducing you to the teachings of the Buddha, helping you guys to understand them from afar, what the teachings are and what the teachings are not. We're going to be starting with meditation, but ultimately we're going to end up exploring his very first teaching. This is the first place that someone would start. If they were interested in even remotely understanding the teachings of the Buddha, they would start with a course like this to be able to help them to understand the very beginning of his very first teaching. When we explore that first teaching, which is called the Four Noble Truths, what you're going to be able to learn is what is the problem that the Buddha discovered in each individual's mind that is unenlightened. What is the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward? This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding why is the mind experiencing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You might think that these feelings are actually caused by something external, but what you're going to hear through the teachings of the Buddha in a way that you can independently verify is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and this is why you can actually eliminate them. The teachings of the Buddha are going to guide you on how to get to a mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is referred to as enlightenment. You guys are going to learn more about this as we go in our course, but it really starts with understanding the Four Noble Truths so you can have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings. Because if you didn't understand what was causing these feelings, you wouldn't actually be able to eliminate them. And as I mentioned, most people go around the world thinking that it's other people that are causing you to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. But you're going to be able to find out today in a way that you can independently verify how it's your own mind that's causing these, and then you'll actually understand how to eliminate them. So again, welcome to everyone here, and welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. I'm going to start with some meditation so that you guys can do a little bit of the training that the Buddha taught. There's much more than meditation that you would need in order to be able to train your mind to enlightenment, but meditation is an important part of the path to enlightenment. So I'm going to share some meditation with you guys, give you guys a chance to practice a bit of it as we ease into the class today. So if you'd like to do some meditation, the way that I start this is I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you'd like to see these chants, they're on a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself to one of those sheets, and you can even chant along if you'd like. For anybody who's online joining us, if you'd like to get this daily chanting sheet, you can go to our website. It's buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books, and then if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. So chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha was used as a learning tool, that everything he taught was oral. The ability to write things down didn't exist 2,500 years ago in the region of the world that the Buddha was in. So he wasn't able to write his teachings down and then have people go study them. So instead, as he would teach orally, people would remember his teachings, and then they would recite them through chanting. This is how they committed them to their memory. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. The Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. There's nothing mystical or magical here with these chants, or none of the teachings of the Buddha are like that. If you've been exposed to rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship with the teachings of the Buddha, those weren't the actual teachings of the Buddha. Even if they were in a temple, or even if there were people who were dressed and appearing like a Buddhist monk, the Buddha never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer. So he used chanting just as to help his students to remember the teachings. Today, we don't need to chant in order to remember teachings because we have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this to be able to help us. But I still use chanting because it helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't even think the Buddha actually created these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego. If somebody did this, this would be putting themselves above other people. And an individual who's gotten to enlightenment, and Buddha has gotten to enlightenment, they wouldn't look at themselves themselves as being above other people. They would think of themselves as being equal to everybody. So the Buddha wouldn't have handed out chants and asked people to chant to him out of respect and gratitude for him. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is in the enlightened mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's where I suspect these chants actually came from. So again, if you'd like to chant as I ease into meditation, you're more than welcome to do that. There's other programs where I actually teach students how to chant, but this isn't that type of program because it's just a short program, but there's other courses where I do teach people how to actually do the chanting. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's just not possible. So the Buddha taught seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times. Again, I teach courses where you can learn this as part of everything that you learn on the path to enlightenment. But oftentimes people are starting in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position to be able to help you with this. That you might be on the floor or there's chairs. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. Any of these types of ways of sitting, you can sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. But if you're on the floor, you might consider having some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles and allows the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. And if you'd like to use this, you could, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here too. You need to find what's comfortable for you. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up or rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you and just do that. For anybody who's in a chair, on a sofa, or a bench, or wheelchair, you can also sit however you're comfortable. There isn't just one fixed way to actually sit. You could sit with your feet flat on the floor. Some people like to lightly cross their ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. Your upper body is helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep your mind attentive and alert, and it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So you can sit with your body upright. It will be a lot nicer for you. Because with meditation, this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you would like the mind to be attentive and alert while you're training it. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back not only keeps the mind attentive and alert, but it makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. Then I'm going to come in with the guidance to be able to guide you during the meditation. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start the course, helping you guys to understand more about the teachings of the Buddha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa คะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start focusing the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภาควตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภาควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this afternoon. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. I'm going to introduce you guys to the teachings of the Buddha. First, I'm going to just help you guys to understand what a Buddha is, because that's a great place to actually start. Because if you're interested in getting introduced into the teachings of the Buddha, one of the first things that you might need to understand is, well, what's a Buddha, right? That would be a really helpful place to start. Then I'm going to help you to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are, what they are not, and then we're going to move into the very first teaching of the Buddha. We'll talk about meditation as well as we go, but I just was interested in you guys getting a little taste of this meditation first. But let's talk about what a Buddha is. A Buddha is an individual who's gotten to enlightenment by themselves, this mental state of enlightenment, which you guys are going to be learning about here in a moment, that they didn't need any teachers or guides to be able to help them to be able to experience this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. They figured out how to do it on their own. Then once they've gotten to enlightenment, an individual who's a Buddha will then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three main criteria of what make a Buddha a Buddha. They get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then upon their death, they will have preserved their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So this is the three main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. The reason why they're able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides is because of this fourth criteria here. An individual who's going to become a Buddha, even in the unenlightened state, will have a deep, profound memory beyond anything that you could potentially even imagine. That you might think about it as like you have a certain capacity in your mind to store certain memories and things like this, like maybe a hard drive. Like a hard drive might be 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. Once it reaches capacity, it has to delete old files in order to store new files because it has a certain capacity limit. An individual who's going to become a Buddha, they have an unlimited capacity to remember countless details about their current life and their past life too. They don't have to delete old files in order to store new files. So this is why for your mind, when you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories. You don't have direct recall of every single thing that you were doing during your childhood and maybe even before that, like in a previous life. Instead, you just have spotty memories because in the last 5 or 10 years, you probably remember most of the things you've been up to and what you've been doing. But when you go back too far, you've had to delete those files in order to store new files. That's what an average individual is going to experience. But a person who's actually going to become a Buddha, they have an unlimited capacity to remember things from their current life and their past lives too. So they bring together all their wisdom to be able to then get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides, because they've been accumulating this wisdom over multiple lifetimes. So this is the fourth criteria of what makes a Buddha, is that they have an excellent memory. They have an unlimited capacity to remember things. An individual who's a Buddha can quickly determine the condition of somebody else's mind, and then they would be able to offer them teachings to be able to help them to be able to get to enlightenment. Because an individual who's a Buddha, they would understand the human mind very well and how it functions, and they would know what enlightenment is and what it is not, and they would be able to then help an individual to be able to move beyond the current challenges that they have in their mind to then be able to experience enlightenment. So an individual who's a Buddha can determine the condition of other people's minds, but they don't do this with just people they don't know, right? They don't just walk around and be like, hey, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do that. It's just with their students that they observe their students' minds, and then they're able to help that individual with teachings that will be able to help them to be able to get to enlightenment. And then the last thing is a Buddha is a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they're teaching, they're also practicing those same things as well. That a Buddha understands that their students are learning just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions. So an individual who's a Buddha is going to be practicing the same exact things that they're teaching. So if they're teaching, for example, to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful, you're going to see that they're actually polite, kind, friendly, respectful in their day-to-day life. So a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings so that their students can learn through their actions, not just their spoken words. So these are the criteria of what makes a Buddha. And we refer to this individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. They're very rare in the world. The last one that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So you'll be able to get to enlightenment, but you won't be a Buddha at that point. You'd be an enlightened being. But nobody walks around with a title or some kind of certificate or something like that. You'll just know for yourself that your mind is enlightened. But we refer to this person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one because by the time they get to enlightenment, what they know about the path to enlightenment is very clear, very crisp. They understand the path to enlightenment very clearly. The average person who gets to enlightenment, if you were studying with someone who wasn't a Buddha, for example, maybe what you learned from that teacher led to your enlightenment, but not everything that you're doing actually contributed to you getting to enlightenment. So maybe 80 or 90% of what you know actually contributed to your enlightenment, but maybe 5, 10, 20% of what you know didn't actually lead to your enlightenment, but you're still doing those kinds of things. But by the time someone gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, they don't have that because the person who's just kind of practicing that 10 or 20% of things, they might be doing that out of respect for their teacher. But an individual who's a Buddha, they don't have any teachers or any guides. So if they try a certain meditation and it works to improve the condition of their mind, they know that that's the path to enlightenment. That's part of the teachings. If they try a certain meditation and it doesn't work to improve the condition of their mind, they'll discard it. They won't do it any longer, right? But an individual who isn't a Buddha doesn't have that capability. They might just keep that meditation around, even though it didn't really contribute to their enlightenment. So by the time an individual gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, they know the path very clearly, in a lot of detail. And they spend the rest of their life essentially illuminating that path, laying down lights along the side of the path, making it visible for other people to be able to understand how to get to enlightenment. That's what a Buddha is interested in, is seeing seen people get to this enlightened mental state. So we refer to this person as a fully, perfectly enlightened one because they don't have that extra baggage around. And now they're going to spend their life helping everybody to understand what that path is to be enlightened. So what I'm going to do is share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are, and then I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. The teachings of the Buddha are a path to attaining enlightenment through purification of the mind. The Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind, and he figured out the tools and techniques of how to eliminate them out of his own mind. And having done that, he experienced enlightenment through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And then he spent the rest of his life sharing those teachings with other people. By the time you get to enlightenment and you've purified the mind, you'll experience this mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy through this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. One of the big myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. And this just isn't true. He talks about it in his teachings, that it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know this to be true because everything you've ever done in life has been that way. Whether it's learning how to read, write, and speak English or any other language, it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Or if it was like your work, some activity that you do at work, some special ability that you have to earn money, it was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress for you to acquire those skills. It wasn't instantaneous. So getting to enlightenment is the same way, that you're gradually removing these pollutions out of the mind. And as you do, you'll get to a point where you'll no longer experience these discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of that is eliminated out of the mind because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it. The causes and conditions that are producing these feelings are those 10 pollutions that the Buddha discovered inside the mind. So when you uproot those out of the mind, you'll see that you won't experience these feelings any longer. The mind will be cheerful and bright and glad. It'll be uplifted. And this will be the case all the time. You'll always be happy. You won't be that bouncing off the walls, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Not that kind of happiness, but the mind's just bright and cheerful and uplifted. You have gladness in the mind. That's what an enlightened being is experiencing. And because you've eliminated those pollutions through purification of the mind will have a high degree of focus, concentration, memory, and there'll be clarity of mind because the mind's performing optimally. It doesn't have those pollutions any longer. When you have pollutions in your mind, it can be a burden to carry those around. You'll get to the end of your day and you'll feel exhausted and tired, right? An enlightened being doesn't have that. Their mind's always bright and uplifted, right? You might get to the end of your life or end of your day and just feel so exhausted. But other days you'll go out into the world and you'll have such a great day. It's like, wow, this was such a great day. It was so wonderful. An enlightened being is having a wonderful day every single day. They enjoy every aspect of their life, and their mind's going to be performing optimally. They'll have deep wisdom about the world around them by the time someone gets to enlightenment, and they'll be able to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody. Right now, you might find that to be challenging. There's probably certain people that you can be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to, but there's probably other people that you have impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful conduct when you're around them, and you find it hard to be respectful to these people or polite to these people. I'm going to explain to you why that is as we go in our class today, but that's what an unenlightened being is experiencing. But an enlightened being can be polite and respectful to everybody. They're not causing any harm in the world. By the time someone gets to enlightenment, you're no longer causing harm to other beings, so therefore harm isn't coming back to you. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming, right? They're really at ease, because when you're bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships, all that stuff's going to come back to you. You can look at your relationships with your parents or your siblings or any other people that you find it challenging to get along with in your life, maybe your life partner, your children. You can see that when you're bitter and harsh and hostile, that all comes back to you in your relationships. So by the time you purify your mind and you're functioning in this way that is harmless, where you're being polite, kind, friendly, respectful to everybody, you're going to see that your relationships really blossom, that they're at ease because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile anymore. And it's going to take you time to transform your mind to be able to experience that, but gradually over time, you'll be able to experience that. The way that this is happening is that an individual has eliminated what's called craving, anger, and ignorance. This is the way to refer to the 10 individual pollutions at a high level. The Buddha's most detailed description of these pollutions in the mind are called the 10 fetters. But when we refer to them in a high level, we call them craving, anger, and ignorance. I'll just give you guys a little overview of what this is. What craving is, these are all the pollutions in the mind, right? What craving is it's like this longing, yearning, the wants and expectations, the mind chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way, expecting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience. And this is coming from your own mind, where the mind is craving, it's longing, it's yearning, it's wanting things to be a certain way. If you think back to when we were a child, we might have went to our mom and we say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, can I get some chocolate and ice cream?" They're like, "Sure, here you go. You can have chocolate and ice cream." Yay, chocolate and ice cream. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to have chocolate and ice cream. You're so happy, right? And then you eat your chocolate and ice cream. You're like, you're the best mommy and daddy ever, right? And then maybe a couple of hours or a couple of days go by and you say, "Mommy, Daddy, can I have some chocolate and ice cream?" "Sure, here you go. Here's some chocolate and ice cream." Yay, chocolate and ice cream. You feel so great, right? You're eating your chocolate and ice cream. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. But then maybe you say, "Mommy, Daddy, can I have some more chocolate and ice cream?" "No, you can't have chocolate and ice cream." Now we're angry. You're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? Because we didn't get our wants fulfilled. We had a want and an expectation. We were longing, yearning for that chocolate and ice cream. And when we got it, we were quite happy because our craving got fulfilled. But when we didn't get what we wanted, that's when we became angry or frustrated or sad. And this is happening in other parts of your life too. If your bank account balance is up here and you get really happy and excited, then when it goes down here, you get sad or frustrated. Or if you get really happy and excited when it's sunny outside, that means when it's raining, you'll be irritated or annoyed or frustrated, right? Or if your parents do this over here, you get really happy and excited. But if they do this over here, you'll be angry and frustrated. This is the mind's cause of its discontentedness, is this craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is chasing after the objects of its affection. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. And if it gets what it wants, it's happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry or sad. The mind's like, what do I need to feel better? A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll do it. Let me get one of those boyfriends or girlfriends. And now you chase that for a while. And you get so happy when you first get that. But then you guys start getting angry and frustrated at each other. And you're like, I know what I need. I need some more money. Let me chase some more money. Now you go try to get some more money. And then you get your more money. You're like, now I'm really happy. But then it fades away. And then you're like, I know what I need, some jewelry. Let me get some jewelry or a new watch, or let me go on vacation. Let me get a new house, a new car. And the mind just chases after these external things, trying to get its happiness, trying to get those cravings fulfilled. And now it can be happy if it gets what it wants. But if it doesn't get what it wants, that's when the anger arises. When this anger is arising, that's where the mind becomes unskillful. It can push people away, or be bitter and harsh and hostile to them, or start putting their expectations on you, right? So let's just say your cravings aren't getting fulfilled, and now these painful feelings are coming up in the mind, the anger, the mind's false understanding, misunderstanding, its misperception, its lack of wisdom. It firmly believes that these painful feelings, this anger, is coming from something external. So it will tend to push people or a situation away out of your life. You might have pushed away friends or family members out of your life. This is what the mind does. It's called aversion, that it firmly believes if I push this person out of my life, I'll be happy. But you can see that that's not the case, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If this person was the true cause of your problem, when you push them away, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. but that's not what occurred, right? So when you push people away, this isn't actually solving your problem. Or the second thing you might do when you think that this anger is coming from something external is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. It's like, do things my way. It's like trying to fear this person into doing things your way, right? And the mind thinks if I can just get my cravings fulfilled, if they do it my way, everything will be perfect. But that's not the case, because this person sometimes will leave out of your life because they don't like that bitterness and harshness and hostility. Or the third thing that might happen is you might put your expectations on people and try to control people and force them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too. People might be pushing you away. People might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you. And people might be putting their expectations on you and trying to control you to do things their way. And where all of this is coming from is the third one, which is called ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the lack of wisdom. This word ignorance is what a lot of teachers use, so I still use it just so that if you ever study with anyone else, you'll know what they're talking about. But a better way to think about this is confusion or misunderstanding or the lack of wisdom, the unknowing of true reality, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind in the unenlightened state firmly believes that its anger is being caused by something external. It doesn't understand that it's craving, desire, attachment. It doesn't understand that your mind itself is causing its own discontent feelings. And that's why it continues to get angry and pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting your expectations on people. And in this situation, you can't live with all beings harmoniously, because it's only a matter of time before someone does things differently than you. If you can only be peaceful with people who do things your way, then you can't be peaceful in all situations, because it's only a matter of time before someone does things differently than you. So if you have a relationship, if that relationship goes for a number of years, it's only a matter of time before that person does things differently than what you expect, and now you're going to either push them away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. So where all this is coming from is the lack of wisdom. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues. If it wasn't for the ignorance, the craving and anger wouldn't exist. So that's why everything on the path to enlightenment with the Buddha is all about cultivation of wisdom. Because when you cultivate wisdom, you'll be able to eliminate your craving and anger, where you're not chasing after things and trying to hold on to them. But also, you're not all the way over here on the other side, where you're dull and you're lethargic and you could care less about what's going on in the world. You need to be able to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And I'll help you guys to understand what that is as we go forward today. So the teachings of the Buddha are a purification of the mind through training of the mind. What you're doing to cultivate wisdom is you're developing wisdom of what's called the natural laws of existence, namely something called the natural law of Gotama. You might have heard this referred to as karma. This is the more popular version of the word. The word karma comes from the Sanskrit language, where the word Gama comes from the Pali language. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the language of Pali. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word Gama, where the word karma is pointing to the exact same thing. But if this translated just one English word, I would just use that word because it'd be easier for all of you guys, but it doesn't translate to just one English word. What this word Gama is it means cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. Whatever decisions you make, you will experience the results of those decisions, either wholesome or unwholesome. So if you make wise decisions and you're experiencing wholesome Gama, you're experiencing wholesome results. If you make unwise decisions, you will experience unwholesome Gama, or unwholesome results. So what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is he's helping you to awaken or cultivate wisdom. That's what it means to awaken, is cultivate wisdom about the natural laws around you. There's certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And this natural law of Gama is affecting you every day, whether you're aware of it or not. just like the natural law of gravity. When we were all growing up, we didn't understand the natural law of gravity. We had no idea that this natural law existed. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows. We had so much trouble with this natural law of gravity. We would cry and cry and cry because we lacked wisdom of it. So we were living in a world that we didn't understand. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. We didn't believe that this natural law existed. We could see it for ourselves. There it is, right? We can see, oh, there it is. We're not believing the natural law of gravity. We know with 100% certainty it exists. And we cultivated wisdom about this natural law. And slowly but surely, by the time we were 10, 12, 14 years old, you might say that we fully awoke to the natural law of gravity. We started making wiser decisions because we had wisdom about this natural law. We started tying our shoes a little bit tighter. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like a little kid all the time. We started looking at the surface of the street when we were walking, and now we can walk through the world peacefully and joyfully because we fully awoke to this natural law of gravity. We can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world. So we might say we fully awoke to this natural law of gravity. But this natural law was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. And when we lacked wisdom of it, we struggled and we had difficulties. So that stress and anxiety, the anger, the guilt and the shame and the fear, that's the mind having struggles and difficulties because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand these natural laws. So what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is awaken or cultivate wisdom about these natural laws. And the way that you cultivate wisdom is you don't believe any teachings. You never believe the teachings of the Buddha. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because someone convinced you to believe it or you convinced yourself to believe it. Instead, you need to get to wisdom where you understand these natural laws and now you can make wise decisions and navigate the world peacefully. So the way that you get to wisdom is you learn, examine, and investigate the teachings. This is the intellectual part, right? Then you reflect on those teachings to independently verify, are they true or false? Because the Buddha is teaching you about the natural laws and you can look around the world and you can independently verify whether it's true or false. Then you start practicing his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life where you're actually training your mind and making wise decisions. And this is where you see that the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life is occurring. You'll see peacefulness and joy. You'll see your relationships improve. You'll see that you're not angry anymore. In that situation where you were once angry, you don't experience anger anymore. So you'll slowly see this transformation through learning, reflecting, and practicing to cultivate wisdom. So the Buddha didn't explain to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows certain rules and commandments, that the world will become a peaceful place. So he didn't explain the way the world should be. He's explaining the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, now you can navigate the world peacefully. Because as I mentioned, when you're struggling and having difficulties in life, it's just because there's a certain lack of wisdom that the mind has. And if you cultivate that wisdom, now you can overcome that challenge. And if you ever meet that challenge again, you've got the wisdom to overcome it, no big deal. But if you don't have the wisdom, then it's going to be a struggle and a challenge for you. It's going to be really difficult to be able to face whatever it is that you're facing. So the Buddha is explaining to you how the world is, and now you can navigate the world understanding these natural laws. So training the mind to experience this peace and this joy comes through acquiring wisdom of the natural laws of existence and through eliminating the pollutions of the mind. One of those pollutions is that lack of wisdom that the Buddha describes. So you're awakening to these natural laws. And there's other natural laws besides the natural law of karma, but this is the main natural law that you're awakening to. The teachings of the Buddha are timeless. That whatever he described 2,500 years ago, it's the same natural laws that existed during his lifetime as exist today. So that's why his teachings are timeless. They're not stuck in a cultural past. You'll be able to see that whatever he taught 2,500 years ago are the same exact teachings that you need to learn today to be able to get to enlightenment, because the natural laws haven't changed. So the Buddha taught very clear very concise, and very precise. You don't have to interpret his words. You don't have to figure out what he was trying to say. He speaks very clear and very concise, and you can see that he's describing these natural laws very clearly to you, and they're timeless, that whatever he taught 2,500 years ago, it's the same natural laws that exist today. Now, the books and the people's memories have changed. That's why you see so many misunderstandings in the world about his teachings, because the vast majority of the world isn't actually studying his original teachings. That can sound very strange to some people if you grew up like maybe studying the Bible or studying the Quran or things like this, that there's just one book, right? Well, the teachings of the Buddha are in 45 books that are this thick. Right? That's what we have left. That's the largest, most complete collection that we have of his teachings. It's referred to as the Pali Canon. So the average person actually doesn't study his original words, and this is where people become very confused about what he actually taught. But if you study his original teachings, you'll see that they're very clear, very concise, very precise, and his teachings are timeless. He does teach about the cycle of rebirth, and he teaches about these realms of existence of hell, animal, afflicted spirits, human realm, and heavenly realm. And as you guys heard me share, none of his teachings are based in belief, including the cycle of rebirth, including the 5 realms of existence. These can actually be independently verified. You might not have the wisdom right now of how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth or these 5 realms of existence, but that is something that you can acquire over time, that we're all in this cycle of rebirth until you train your mind and you escape out of that. And then there's these 5 realms. The Buddha never used this as a way to guilt, shame, or fear people into learning and practicing his teachings, because he's helping you to eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. He's not going to use guilt, shame, and fear in order to convince you to be able to learn his teachings. In fact, he's not even trying to convince anybody to learn his teachings. He already got to peace and joy, and anybody who was interested in learning how to do that, he would help you to be able to do that. But if you weren't interested, okay, he just didn't share it with you. So the cycle of rebirth can be independently verified, and in this book series that I share 13 books. In volume 11, chapter 105, it's in there helping you to be able to understand how to actually independently verify. There's 17 different ways to be able to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might not remember your previous lives, but the Buddha taught these things for a reason, because as you're eliminating the pollution out of your mind through all the other training that he taught, you might actually observe your past lives. You might start having memories of your past lives. So if you started having vivid memories of being murdered, and these memories just kept coming up in your mind over and over and over again, if you didn't understand that that was your past lives, it could really shake you up, and you would potentially be unstable and unsteady in that period of time. Or if you started to have the ability to see these beings in these other realms, like hell, I'm sure you've seen animals, afflicted spirits are like ghosts. And then, of course, there's human realm, and then there's the heavenly realm. Some people can see these beings, even though the hell beings, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings are formless beings. Some people can see them. And if you didn't understand that this is normal and that this is actually the way the world is, it could really shake you up. Or as you're training your mind and you're getting rid of this pollution, some people can hear communication from these beings, like hell beings, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings. And again, if you didn't understand what that was, it could really shake you up. But just like you can train your mind, like if you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's being like really loud and talking quite loud, you've trained your mind to ignore that and just focus on the conversation that you're having. You can do the same thing with these beings, that when you're starting to hear these beings, you can just ignore them, right? And you won't affect your mind any longer. So the Buddha taught these things for a reason, because it's the truth. And this is the way the world really truly is. And if you start having these experiences of either remembering your past lives, seeing these beings, or having communication with these beings, if you didn't understand this, it could really shake you up. So he taught it because it's the truth, and you're going to need to know that. But what I suggest people do at the beginning of their journey to enlightenment is just set it aside. Because what's happened in the past is in the past. It doesn't matter right now. What may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It doesn't matter. You're never interested in believing in the cycle of rebirth or these 5 realms of existence. But at the beginning of your journey to enlightenment, that's not the time to try to independently verify this. There's so many other teachings to be able to learn and understand at the beginning. focus on those first, but then in the future, you can gain the understanding of how to independently verify these things. But just understand that the Buddha did teach about these things. The Buddha also taught about God. Sometimes people think that the Buddha never taught about God. And this is coming from someone who just hasn't studied his original teachings. If somebody studies his original teachings, you can see that he teaches about this being of God. But he doesn't put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's you and your decisions that determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. So he put you at the center of his teachings. So you don't have to fear this being. You don't have to worship this being. You don't have to pray to this being. The Buddha doesn't teach any of those kinds of things. Instead, he just helps you to understand that this being exists, and he helps you to understand a bit about this being. But whether you have a relationship with that being or not is a choice for you to make. You can actually get to enlightenment with a relationship with God, or without a relationship with God. It's up to you. It's your journey to enlightenment. So the Buddha didn't put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment. He put you at the center of his teachings, because your decisions are what's going to help you to be able to get to enlightenment, and you determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. Like I was mentioning, the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha are in what's called the Pali Canon. This is 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. During the lifetime of the Buddha, everything he taught was spoken. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. You might not think about writing something down as technology, but 2,500 years ago, that was technology. The language that the Buddha spoke didn't even have a script, because they didn't have a reason for a script. It was just an oral language. But shortly after his death, the ability to write things down was in that region of the world. So shortly after his death, they came together and they started documenting his teachings. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll never forget the teachings that it took for you to get to enlightenment. You'll never forget those. So by the time the Buddha died, there were countless people who had gotten to enlightenment, and 500 of them came together and they agreed on what the Buddha taught, and they documented it. And we refer to that as the Pali Canon. And because today it's in 45 volumes of books that are this thick, it's very expensive to print out. The average Thai person would need to spend about 3 months of their salary in order to be able to purchase a complete set of the teachings of the Buddha. So the average Thai person doesn't have this. Even the average temple doesn't actually have this. So the average person in the world doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha, which is really unfortunate, because this is where the misunderstandings come from. But if you base what you learn on the original words of the Buddha, then you'll be able to know what did he teach and what he didn't teach. In this book series that I share, what we've done is we've extracted out of those 45 volumes of books the most important teachings that you need in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And you can actually get this for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon, and that way you can get access to these teachings. This book series is titled The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because these teachings have essentially been hidden for many centuries, not overtly, not intentionally, but just unintentionally, because of the cost involved to be able to print them out. So the way that I think about this book series is revealing the hidden teachings and making it available for no cost, because that was one of the big hindrances and obstacles in the way for people to get access to this. But nowadays, with modern technology like the internet, we can download it for free. We don't have to print it if we're not interested in it. Some people like to have printed versions, so that's why they're available. So this book series consolidates these 45 volumes of books into 13 books that make it very approachable for you to be able to gradually learn and understand. So one of the things that I think about in terms of what are the teachings of the Buddha is they are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. Right now, you experience a certain amount of hurt, a certain amount of pain, a certain amount of misery or sorrow or grief. But that's all something that you can eliminate. You don't have to continue to experience that. You can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is within your own mind. It's not the outside world. If it was the outside world that was causing your pain, you'd never be able to fix it, because you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. It's just not possible. But the Buddha, he figured out how to get to this peace and joy on his own, right? So you can get to enlightenment without training other people. You don't need to train other people to do things your way, but you're going to need to know what's hurting you, which is inside your own mind. And that's what the first teaching is going to help you to do, that I'm going to share with you, is helping you to understand what is the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. So I'm going to pause here, though, and see if you guys have questions, because I open up for questions at different times all the time that I'm teaching. And if you guys would like to ask questions to gain clarity, you're more than welcome. Whether you're here or you're online, you can ask questions. If you would like to ask any questions here at the temple, if you guys could use the microphones here in this white bowl, that way the people online will be able to hear you. All you need to do is press the gray button, the lights will come on, and you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And if you keep these microphones with you, that way, if you have more than one question or someone around you has a question, you can share it. So you can take these microphones back to your seat with you. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom in the comments section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream. So do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are in order to be able to get some clarity? Anybody here? Okay, let me see if we have anything online. Hello to everyone online. Let me see. Okay, I don't see any questions online. I see some comments of people saying, thank you, I'm coming to see you, these kinds of things, but I don't see any questions. So, okay. All right, so now I'm going to move to the next part. All right, so now that I've explained to you what the teachings of the Buddha are, I'm going to explain to you what the teachings of the Buddha are not. Because this is going to help you to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are, is to explain to you what the teachings are not. Okay? So the teachings of the Buddha are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you don't believe in them. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. There's actually no belief in the teachings of the Buddha at all. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it, right? The Buddha is helping you to get to wisdom to understand these natural laws. He's not giving you opinions or views. He's explaining to you true reality of these natural laws. So this isn't the teachings of the Buddha. And the teachings of the Buddha aren't even about an afterlife. It's not about getting to a wonderful life after this. It's about getting to a wonderful life now, in this life, right? That's what he's guiding you to be able to do, that you can thoroughly enjoy every single aspect of your life. Right now, that's probably not the case. There's probably certain relationships, maybe your job or occupation or whatever it is. There's probably certain parts of your life that you're like, man, do I have to do that again? Man, right? But by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be enjoying every single aspect of your life. So it's not about an afterlife. It's about getting to peace and joy now in this life. And that's one of the beauties about the teachings of the Buddha, is that you can see your mind doing that. That as you're learning and practicing these teachings, you can see the improvements, because you know where you normally get angry and mad and frustrated and agitated. And when you're having those same exact situations and you're quite peaceful and joyful, you'll know that it's these teachings that are doing that. You'll see it in your own mind. With belief, you don't know. You're just believing and hoping when you die that something good's going to happen. But you don't know that that's the case. But in this life, you can see the improvement to your mind as you're learning and growing and developing. I don't think of the teachings of the Buddha as a religion. They are not a religion, in my opinion. But it all comes down to how you think about a religion. If you think about a religion as one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't do, or if you think about religion as rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship, or you think about it as rules and commandments that everyone must follow in order to create a peaceful world, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. There's not one person at the top of Buddhism. It just doesn't exist, right? He doesn't teach any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. If you've seen these things, whether it's here in Thailand or other places associated with the teachings of the Buddha, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. You can see in his original words that he didn't teach any auspicious or superstitious thing. He teaches you that he didn't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, because that doesn't lead to wisdom. right? There's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to help you cultivate wisdom and experience improved results in your life. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that are going to make you more wise, right? It's all about cultivation of wisdom. That's why he never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. And there aren't any rules or commandments in his teachings. He's guiding you to be able to understand these natural laws, and then it's up to you whether you choose to practice that or not. There's nobody coming to enforce any kind of rules or commandments. He's not using guilt, shame, or fear to help you to be able to understand those things. He's helping you to understand the natural laws, and then whether you choose to make decisions that way or not, it's up to you, right? So his teachings, in my opinion, they're not a religion, but it all comes down to how you think about a religion. What he taught is a better way of life. This is the better way of living life, is where your mind's peaceful and joyful, and you can have love and kindness for all the people around you, and you can have wonderful relationships. It's a better way of life. His teachings are not punishments and rewards. If you've been taught that way growing up in any particular tradition where there's punishments and rewards and you're taught to fear, this isn't what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach those kinds of things. If you were taught mystical and magical things or superstitious and auspicious things, the Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. He says it very clearly in his teachings. It's also, his teachings are not something to attempt to force other people to do or convince other people to do. Sometimes people teach you to go out into the world and convince other people to do something, and somehow that's how we're going to get to peace and joy. That's not the actual case. So the teachings of the Buddha are for you. It's not about going out into the world and convincing other people to do something, right? The way that you get to peace and joy is focused on your own mind. So the way you might think about the teachings of the Buddha is it's like a self-help program. It's the most well-vetted self-help program you've ever seen because it's been around for 2,500 years for a reason, because it works. So you're doing growth, you're doing inner work, you're doing inner development, becoming a better and better human being yourself. It has nothing to do with going out into the world and convincing other people to do anything at all. Also, if you spend any time on social media, you might see a bunch of short little catchy phrases, and then they'll put the words the Buddha, as if the Buddha said this particular thing. You'll see this a lot. And if you research these little short catchy phrases that circulate around on social media, 99.9% of them, the Buddha never actually said. That they were actually phrases that people created in the last 100 to 200 years, but they slapped the words the Buddha on there to be able to give it more credibility. So if you see these short little catchy phrases, those are most likely not the teachings of the Buddha. He has these very long, detailed discourses explaining to you these natural laws. There's no short, catchy phrases in the teachings of the Buddha. And then lastly, what the teachings of the Buddha are not is they are not teachings that are stuck in a cultural past that are denigrating or degrading any particular group of people. Sometimes people think, the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. He must have degraded women, right? No, he did not, right? An enlightened being doesn't degrade or denigrate anybody. He didn't talk unfavorably about women or people of a minority group or people who have same-gender relationships or things like this. He didn't talk in negative ways about anybody at all. So he actually taught men to respect women. He taught women to respect men. He didn't teach to denigrate and degrade any particular group of people. He doesn't have any hatred in his teachings. He wasn't teaching you to hate people. He was teaching you to have love and kindness for all beings. So you won't see anywhere in his teachings where he degrades any particular group of people. And this is really helpful because 2,500 years ago, people are like, gosh, he must have, talked bad about somebody. No, he didn't. He actually taught very positively and encouraged people to be polite and respectful to everybody. And then he taught you how to be able to do that. So this is what the teachings of the Buddha are not. Do you guys have any questions on what the teachings of the Buddha are not? No questions? Okay, let me see if we have any online. Okay, I don't see any questions online. Okay, so normally what I do at this point, I think Gala's mom has a question. No? Okay. So usually what I do at this point is I give you guys an opportunity to take a little break. So you get to know each other, get to meet each other, maybe use the bathroom. We have some snacks and refreshments. This is all provided by our students. Our students provide this so that other students can have a nice snack. There's also a 7-Eleven down the street. If you go out of the front gate of the temple and you turn right, down at the end of the street, there's a 7-Eleven. Because I'm going to take a good 20-minute break, give you guys a chance to rest and talk to each other and those kinds of things. And I'm going to start back up at 2:40, which is about 20 minutes from now. And what I'm going to do at 2:40 is I'm going to share with you the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. This is where you're going to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's kind of like if you were going to take a hike on a hiking trail, there's usually like a trailhead marker that's kind of explaining to you a little bit about this hiking trail that you're going to take. That's what this is. This is like a trail marker. In 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to independently verify why you experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. So you can have like a real breakthrough here to be able to once and for all understand this. So enjoy your break, spending time with each other, and I'll see you at 2:40. Okay? So thank you all. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started again. So welcome back to you guys. It's 2:40. So we're going to move into this topic of the Four Noble Truths. This is called establishing right view. Whereas I mentioned that if you were going to take a hike on a hiking trail, there's typically a trail marker at the front of the trail that's kind of giving you a little bit of understanding of this trail. It's like, say, maybe you're going to walk down this hill, you're going to cross over the stream, you're going to walk through a valley, and it's going to circle around and come back to the parking lot where you've parked your car. Maybe this is like a 5-kilometer walk or something like this. So each trail will typically have a trail marker helping you to understand a little bit about the hiking trail. So the same thing is true about the Four Noble Truths. It's kind of like a trail marker helping you to understand what it is that you're going to encounter along the path to enlightenment. So I'm going to help you guys to understand this very first most important teaching of the Buddha. Whenever he would teach students, he would start them with this particular teaching, because this is where you can understand what is causing these discontent feelings. Because how could you ever eliminate them if you didn't understand what was causing them? So that's why he starts you with this particular teaching. It's called the Four Noble Truths, and in order to explain to you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first help you to understand the three universal truths. It's part of this eightfold path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha. It's helping you to establish right view, this very first step here. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to be teaching the entire path. But today, I'm just going to focus in on this step right here of right view. But if you'd like to learn the entire path, there's tomorrow that you can learn it. And then next week, Monday through Friday, I'm going to be teaching a course. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. You'll be able to learn the foundational teachings of the path to enlightenment. And all these things are available at no cost, whether it's the books or videos, podcasts, the courses, classes, retreats, even my personal guidance. I will sit with you and help you to be able to understand the teachings on a personal level. That if you like all that, it's available at no cost. So we're going to focus in on this right view today, because this is the foundation of everything else that the Buddha taught in one way or another. If you were interested in even remotely understanding the teachings of the Buddha, you would need to understand this aspect of his teachings, right view. So like I mentioned, in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, I need to first explain to you the three universal truths. The Buddha called these truths because he knows that they're true. Other people know that they're true. I know that they're true. But in order for you to get the benefit of them, you need to know that they're true. That's why when I teach you here today, don't believe anything that I say. That you need to be able to learn, examine, and investigate what I'm sharing with you. Reflect on it to independently verify whether it's true or false. And then if you practice what I'm sharing with you, that's where you'll see the improvement to the condition of your mind. So I'm going to show you how to do this learning, reflection, and practice to be able to get to the point where you know that these things are true. So for example, this first universal truth, this is what's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. These are like building blocks. So I'm going to teach you these first. This universal truth of impermanence is teaching you how the world is. Remember, he's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And what he's explaining to you is that the world around you is constantly changing. That things arise, they change, and they fade away. This is called impermanence. They're temporary. These are called conditioned objects. Anything you see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. They will arise, they will change, and they will fade away. These are called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. Enlightenment is that way, that once you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to ever experience anger ever again, that the mind is permanently in that mental state. The natural laws themselves, they are unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. That's why the Buddha's teachings are timeless. That what he taught 2,500 years ago is the same things you need to know today in order to get to enlightenment. So there's conditioned objects which arise, change, and fade away. And then there's unconditioned objects that do not arise, do not change, and do not fade away. And enlightenment and the natural laws of existence are the only things that are unconditioned. Everything else that you can see, hear, smell, taste, comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas going through the mind, they are all impermanent. Okay, so this is a little bit of the learning, right? But now you need to reflect on this because you're not interested in believing this. right? You need to reflect to be able to see, is this actually true? Because if what I'm sharing with you is true, you should be able to independently verify it. Here's how you do that. You look around the world and you try to see if you can find something that is permanent. If you can find something that you can see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind that are permanent, then you've disproven this. So what I suggest that you do is you start with something that you're familiar with, like this physical body, this human body that you have. You can ask yourself, is it permanent, meaning that it's been exactly the same your entire life, or is this body impermanent, meaning that it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? The body's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, this body has been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, right? We end up getting pimples and moles and wrinkles. We get gray hair. We start losing our hair. Our teeth grew in and then they fell out, and then our teeth grew back in, and now we get cavities perhaps. This is constant change of the physical body, right? So this physical body is impermanent. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've been having people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or are they impermanent? Okay. So have you had exactly the same people in your life your whole life, or have been people coming and going in and out of your life? Your parents are the same parents, right? But in terms of your relationships, are your relationships exactly the same? You've had people coming and going in and out of your life, right? Because you're not going to have the same relationships, right? So what about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? This is constant change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. It's sunny, it's raining. Other places it's snow, sleet, tornadoes, typhoons, hurricanes. All these different things are constant change, right? So we could go on and on and on like this. And if that's what you need to do, that's what I suggest you do, is go around the world and see if you can find something that's permanent, right? Because when you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanence. Right? Here in Thailand, the sidewalks, sometimes you go up and sometimes you go down, right? They're not just completely flat, right? Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. That's impermanence, right? If you look around the temple, you can see the wood planks on the floor. Some of them are longer or shorter. Some of them are darker. Some of them are lighter. This is all impermanence. There's constant change in the world around you. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. This is a building block that's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. But you're going to need to walk around the world and be able to see this truth for yourself. That when you're looking at a fence and you see that it was painted and now the paint is fading, that is impermanence. You see the green leaves in the tree and you see the brown ones on the ground. That's impermanence. That's change. Okay, so you're going to need to be able to see this for yourself to be able to cultivate that wisdom. Then there's the universal truth of discontentedness. I'm going to explain to you guys what this is. This is a very important teaching from the Buddha, where some people refer to this as suffering, but I don't refer to it that way. If you've learned the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard it referred to in that way. But I'll explain to you how the Buddha teaches this and what this means, and then I'm going to circle back and help you to understand why I don't use the word suffering. So this word that we're using here, discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, this is the translation for the Pali word that is dukkha. This is a Pali word. This is what the Buddha taught the unenlightened mind is experiencing, that there's pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you will then experience a feeling. The pleasant feelings are like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful to experience. The neither painful nor pleasant are things like shyness, right? This is neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category, right? Or maybe say you are sitting on public transportation and somebody that you don't know comes and sits really close to you and your body is touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe your mind's dissatisfied or uncomfortable in that situation. So that's the third one, the neither painful nor pleasant, right? So there's these three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And these are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you are then going to experience a feeling. So for example, if an unenlightened being sees that it's sunny outside, they might get so happy and excited. Yay, I'm going to go on a hike. I've been wanting to go on this hike for a long time. There's this trail that I've been wanting to go on and it's been raining. Oh, it's sunny. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to go hiking. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to go, right? Based on the condition that it's sunny, now the mind's experiencing happiness. But now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. Now you're sad. Now you're frustrated or agitated because you based your feeling on an impermanent condition, that the sun is not permanent. So therefore your happiness is not permanent either. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because your mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, like the sun or your bank account or what your mom or dad do or other things like this, right? So if you base your inner feelings on some impermanent condition and you get happy when your bank account balance is here, well, that means when it changes, you're not happy anymore, right? So this is the temporary nature of the pleasant feelings in the unenlightened state, right? So an enlightened being is beyond this. They don't have conditioned feelings. They have actually moved beyond it. That an enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. It's unconditioned happiness. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for that happiness to be experienced. And now they see it's sunny outside. Sweet, I'm going to go hiking. I've been interested in going hiking for quite a while. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to have a great time. Let me go take a shower. And now you go take a shower and you come outside and it's raining. Guess I can't go hiking. Well, maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over. We can have some dinner. I'll cook some food for them, right? You'll maintain your happiness. You can maintain your joy. That's in the enlightened mental state because you're beyond the conditioned feelings. Your mind in the unenlightened state can only be happy if certain conditions are met. If my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my bank account is this, if the weather is this, if I have this type of house and this type of car, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness actually shrinks, right? Because you're sabotaging your ability to be happy, right? But by the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond that. You're just happy all the time. You don't base your inner feelings on what is or is not happening around you. So I refer to this as discontentedness, okay? And you can independently verify this is what the unenlightened mind experiences because you are in the unenlightened state, you know that. So you can ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant? Do you get happy when your bank account balance is up here and then you get sad when it's down here? You get happy when your boss does certain things and frustrated when they do other things, right? You can see that your mind is experiencing this. So you can think about all the feelings and emotions that you've had over the course of your life and ask yourself, does it fit into these three categories? If there's any feeling or emotion that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, when we get to the question period, let me know and we'll talk about it. Okay, so this is what the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind experiences. And I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. It's explaining the instability of the mind, the way the mind is shaken up and unsteady and uncalm. If you've ever been so excited, you like tripped and fell or broke something, you know what I'm talking about here, that the mind is discontent. So some people refer to this as suffering. You might hear that. The word suffering describes the painful feelings really well. When you're angry, sad, frustrated, stressed, having anxiety, you might say you're suffering, right? But if your boss came in and said they were going to give you a $20,000 a year raise, would you say you were suffering in that situation? When you got so excited, like, oh my God, $20,000 more. Are you serious? Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You're probably not suffering in that situation, right? Or say that person you don't know comes and sits really close to you and your body is touching their body. You might not say you were suffering in that situation. So if we use this word suffering, it's only explaining the painful feelings. So we're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha is teaching on this important topic. That means we're missing 66% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal? Right? So I don't use the word suffering here. I use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness because it's explaining how the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's unstable when it's experiencing a conditioned feeling. Then there's something called the universal truth of non-self. I'll explain this to you guys a little bit. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Those 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, they're referred to as the 10 fetters. They're referred to as a fetter because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep as a criminal trapped in a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. Nowadays, we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells, and that's how we keep them confined. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and they would just keep you in this field. So when the Buddha discovers these 10 pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And your goal on the path to enlightenment is to eliminate the 10 fetters, these 10 pollutions, so your mind can be free, it can be liberated, right? So the very first fetter is called personal existence view. This universal truth of non-self is the solution for that. What personal existence view is where your mind is clinging to the body or the mind itself, thinking that this is who you are. You're clinging to the self-image or the self-identity. And now, if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived by others, you feel good about that. But if you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. With personal existence view, the mind wants other people to perceive you in a certain way. And the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you. So it clings to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting other people to perceive you a certain way. So I'll give you some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. If you've ever been in a social situation where you spilt food on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is personal existence view, where you are clinging to this body, wanting other people to perceive you a certain way, and you can only be happy when they perceive you that way. If you've ever went in front of the mirror and you saw a pimple or a mole or a wrinkle or a gray hair, you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others a certain way, and you could only feel happy if you were being perceived that way, right? This is what the mind does when it clings to a self-image, wanting other people to perceive you a certain way, and you can only be happy if you're being perceived that way. If you were like me when I was a kid, I used to go into the mirror on the way to school. I would get the gel and the mousse and I'd run it through my hair and I'd try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I could go outside. I didn't feel comfortable going outside until my hair was exactly the way it needed to be. And sometimes I did this for so long I would miss the school bus, right? Perhaps you had this experience too. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet and you were thinking, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And there were certain clothing that you needed. And you put on those clothes and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And you put on another set. Nah, that's not how I want to look. And you put on the third. Okay, now I feel comfortable to go outside, right? Because the mind was clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. But you can also cling to an identity in your mind based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to any number of things thinking that this is who you are. Like, for example, I am Chinese. I am American. I am Spanish, I am a Brit, right? Or I am Lithuanian, or I am Brazilian. Any of this I am. And now, let's just say you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, someone says, all Chinese people are loving and kind and warm and gentle. You're like, wow, they're talking about me, right? But now 2 tables over, they're talking something degrading and disparaging about the nationality of where you come from. And now you're like, they're talking about me. Now you're angry and frustrated. So if you're clinging to an identity of who you think you are, you can't be peaceful and joyful all the time. So for example, if you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you identified with I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife. Now when you guys were together, you felt fine. But then when you guys broke up, you didn't identify with I am single. So now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Because the mind thinks that's the way to solve this pollution of personal existence view, where the mind's clinging to this identity of I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I'm a husband, I'm a wife. The mind didn't feel comfortable with I am single. So it felt like the way to solve it is get right back into another relationship so you can reassume that identity, when in reality, you got to get rid of this holding on and this clinging to an identity. You can even see this with like a job or occupation. Say like I was a police officer. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years, I'm thinking I am a police officer. But now maybe I get injured and I can't do the job anymore. Maybe I get laid off or fired. Maybe I retire, right? And now I can't do that job anymore, right? Maybe now I'm driving a taxi. And now my mind's thinking, I am a police officer, and I feel so uncomfortable driving this taxi because I don't identify that way, right? And now this person is struggling in life, right? Sometimes people have this so strong that they come to a place like Thailand. They might tell their family and friends back home, they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And I'm going to go to Thailand and find myself. Well, what the Buddha is teaching you with the universal truth of non-self is he's teaching you that there is no self. That the idea of clinging to this body and this mind is who you are. This is part of the confusion of the mind. This is the misunderstanding that the mind has, thinking that this body is you. And now when you cling to it, wanting it to look a certain way permanently, it can't look that way permanently. It's just not possible because it's constantly changing. Or if you cling to an identity of who you think you are, that's not permanent either. And as soon as you cling to it, now you're sabotaging your ability to be peaceful and joyful. So someone might come to Thailand and they might spend a few months or a few years here, and then they go back home and they say, wow, I feel so great. I found myself. I know who I am now. And they tell other friends, wow, I found myself. They haven't found themselves. They might have found new hobby, new activity, new job, new friends, things like this, but none of that stuff is you. As soon as you cling to that and hold on to that and think that that's who you are, once all that stuff changes, you're going to be right back where you started from, not knowing who you are anymore, right? So the Buddha teaches you that there is no self. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence, but it's important to not see that as who you are as a person. So I can understand this body was born on a land that is referred to as America, but the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. Right? I can leave that off, right? This body was just born on some dirt, however far away, right? But I don't have to adopt the identity of I am an American. But the challenge is that we've been taught all through our life to adopt this identity. Each one of our countries probably have a flag. We have a national anthem. We have sports teams, and you might cheer and cheer and cheer for the people from your team, right? So we've been adopting this personal existence view all through our life, thinking that this is who we are. So ultimately, by the time you get to enlightenment, you will realize non-self. you will realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you. These things are constantly changing, and there's no need to grab onto it and cling onto it as who you think you are. This is the confusion that the mind has, the misunderstanding, because we can talk about it intellectually here and you can understand it, right? But then in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something degrading or disparaging to you about this body, you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated. Right? So I'll help you to be able to independently verify this so you can see that there is no self. Okay? Think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and now. Your character, your personality, who you thought you were as a person. Has it been exactly the same through all those stages of life, or has it been constantly changing? Child, teenager, early adulthood, and now. The way you view yourself, has it been constantly changing through all those time frames? Yeah, it has been, right? Okay, here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Shaking your head, no. If you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No, you're not, right? So there you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, because otherwise you would answer that question differently, right? You would say, yes, I'm less of a person because there's less body, so I'm less of a person. Intellectually, you can understand this body is not you, but in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something degrading or disparaging about this body, you get frustrated, you get agitated or annoyed. Or maybe somebody says something positive. Wow, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. You look so handsome. Wow, you're so beautiful. That new hairstyle looks so great on you. Wow, they're talking about me. You get all these pleasant feelings, right? But then it's only a matter of time before someone says, that shirt is horrible. Why did you ever pick that? Why did you wear that? That new hairstyle you got doesn't look good on you at all, right? Somebody might say these kinds of things, and now you're going to experience the painful feelings because you can't control what other people say. You can only control your own mind. So if you think that this hair is you, when somebody says something degrading or disparaging, you'll experience painful feelings, right? So you need to move beyond that, right? And there's other ways to independently verify this too. So for example, point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? No one's pointing. Maybe you all realize non-self. Okay, there you go. That's a very commonplace. People will point here, right? Sometimes people point here, right? So if you're pointing here and you say, I am here, well, you need to look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing? If we took off the shirt and we held it up, is that you? That shirt you have? You say, no, that's not you, right? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? Someone might point again. Well, what are we pointing to? We're pointing to skin, right? Is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that who you are? That skin? That's not you either, right? Okay, if we held up the skin and we pointed to it, is that you, the skin? No, that's not you? Okay, so we throw that away. Where are you? And someone might point again. We got bones, we got muscle tissue, we got fluid and organs. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, but the mind keeps clinging to it, thinking that it is you. So if the body looks a certain way, you're happy. But if it doesn't look a certain way, you're not comfortable, you're not happy, right? So as long as you cling to this stuff, thinking that it's you, you can't be permanently happy because it's going to change. Okay, so this is the universal truth of non-self. It's helping you to be able to see the wisdom that this body is not you, this mind is not you. But then there's work to do in order to shed that out of your mind. You can't just learn and then just magically go out into the world and be peaceful and joyful. You're going to need to practice training your mind to strip this away. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the three universal truths. Anything you guys would like to ask? Remember, if you guys could use the mics and online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Yes, sir. If you could get a microphone here. It doesn't sound like it's on yet. Not yet.
Should be good.
There you go.
Okay, cool. So can you talk more about consciousness and the relationship between consciousness and self?
So there's the mind. That's what consciousness is, the way that the Buddha describes consciousness. And then there's the body. So there's the body and the mind. But none of that is you. It's not who you are. But the mind's going to keep thinking that it is you. So the mind's going to try to cling to your ethnicity, your culture, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. It can cling to any number of things. Like, I am kind. Right? You could cling to that idea in your mind that I am kind. And now when someone's like, you're the rudest person I've ever met, now you're frustrated. You're angry because your mind is identifying that way. So the mind or the consciousness itself, it's not the self. It's not who you are as a person. It's almost like a container, like a cardboard box. And there are certain contents in that cardboard box that is unique to this being, that's different than every other being, but that doesn't define who you are, because those contents in your box are constantly changing. But the thing is that the mind's going to try to cling to these contents in the box, thinking that this is who you are. So you need to get to the point where you realize none of that stuff is you. Because the mind can even do this like based on choices and decisions that you make. Like say someone in the past was using drugs or alcohol, and now in the present moment they might think, I am an alcoholic, or I am an addict. No, you're not an alcoholic. You're not an addict. You chose to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but those were just choices and decisions that you made. That doesn't define who you are as a person today. So in the unenlightened state, the mind itself is going to cling to these contents inside the box, like choices and decisions, and think that that's who you are. And you need to be able to realize that's not who you are. Those are just choices and decisions that we made, but it doesn't define who we are today as a person.
Thank you. That makes sense. And on your first point, impermanence and permanence, so how should we think about soul itself? Is soul permanence or impermanence?
The Buddha never taught whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. He left it as an undeclared teaching. You know, he has those 45 volumes of books that we still have access to, and he declared many different teachings. But there's a point in time in his teachings where he says, remember what I taught. I taught this. And then he says, remember what I did not teach. I did not teach this. And he lists 10 different things that he did not teach. And one of the things that he didn't teach is whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul, because it conflicts with the universal truth of impermanence. So anytime you hear anybody talking about a soul in relationship to the teachings of the Buddha, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. They haven't understood his teachings. And the Buddha shares that whenever you encounter somebody sharing something that is opposite of his teachings, he says that you should just ignore that and consider that that person has misunderstood his teachings. Because this is a common thing that you'll hear people talk about a soul in relationship to the teachings of the Buddha, but he never taught that. He left it as undeclared. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
How can I know? No. How can I know if I'm clinging to my nationality?
Because when somebody says something about your nationality, like whether it's on the news or a YouTube video or in person, you'll notice discontentedness arising. So if someone says, all Spanish people are loving and kind and warm, you'd get all these pleasant feelings. But then when somebody says something degrading and disparaging, you would get painful feelings. Even if there's a slight little ickiness in the mind, or just like, I didn't like that. That's the clinging that the mind's having. Because by the time you get to the point where you've realized non-self, you don't even have that slight little ickiness of, I didn't like that. It's just like, okay, that's that person's opinion. I am not Spanish. You understand that this body was born in a place called Spain, and you appreciate those people, and you admire maybe the culture and all the things that you've learned there. You appreciate all that stuff, but your mind doesn't identify with it as who you are as a person. That's where you'll know you've realized non-self, because whenever people are saying something positive or negative, your mind's unaffected either way. Okay? All right. So now, one more thing before I teach you the Four Noble Truths. This is one more building block. It's called craving, desire, attachment. Wants and expectation. This is the holding, the grasping, the clinging. This is the mind longing and yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind's pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. The mind almost thinks the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases and chases. So if you've ever been at the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, I just got to get those pair of shoes. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to get those shoes on my feet. They're going to look so great. I can't wait to go to work and everybody will see my brand new shoes. This is going to be great. Yay. And you feel your mind pulling towards that. That's the craving, desire, attachment. Not the shoes themselves, but the way the mind is pulling towards it. It might have been a new phone, a new video game, some jewelry, any number of things. Your mind can be pulling towards it. The mind is thinking that these external things are going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you experience this? Right? The mind thinks that something external, maybe it was Thailand. Maybe you were back home and you're like, man, I don't really like this place. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go to Thailand. That'll fix everything. Let me just go to Thailand. And now you get so excited to go to Thailand, and Thailand's going to solve everything for you. Let me just go to Thailand, right? And you get so happy and excited about going to Thailand. That can be a craving, perhaps, a longing, a yearning, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. Okay, so this is the craving, desire, attachment, not the object itself, but the way the mind is longing, yearning for it. Okay, so now we've got everything we need to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths. This is where you understand the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination, and the path forward. You can have a real breakthrough here. The first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings. That's the problem. That the mind is going to be happy and excited and elated, but then it's going to be sad and angry and frustrated. But then it's going to be bored and lonely and shy and embarrassed. This is the up and down nature of the unenlightened mind, that it's unstable, it's unsteady. This is the problem. Because when your mind's all shaken up like that, you can't make wise decisions that are going to lead to wholesome results. You're going to experience unwise decisions. So that's the problem that everyone's experiencing in the unenlightened state. The second Noble Truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to say that a few times and I'll give you some examples. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way, because the mind craves permanence, when in reality, you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is constantly changing, but the mind craves permanence. Here's an example. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. Maybe it was a brand new relationship. You were so happy. You were so excited. This new person is showing you affection. Maybe you're going out to the movies, you're going to dinner, maybe you're going to the park, maybe you're having great conversations together. Maybe you're even having intimate contact where you're having sex. And it feels so pleasurable to have this new person in your life. Wow, so great. But now over time, you start having these expectations, certain things you want from them, and certain things that they want from you. And they can't meet your expectations all the time. And you get frustrated and angry. And now you guys break up. And now you're maybe even more angry and more frustrated. Maybe you're lonely or bored. Maybe you're missing this person. It's not your love that's causing that. It's the mind's craving, desire, attachment. It's craving permanence, wanting this person in your life permanently, when in reality, they are impermanent. But the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. It's craving for this relationship to be permanent. So if grandma or grandpa has died, or mom or dad or brothers or sisters or other people close to you have died, and you were grieving or sorrowful at that time, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind was craving permanence. That if the mind gets what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa alive, I feel happy. But when they die, you're experiencing impermanence. The mind's craving permanence. When grandma and grandpa die, the mind's not getting what it wants. So therefore, it experiences painful feelings, right? Grandma and grandpa had to die. Because they were born, they have to die, right? Every single one of us, we're impermanent. We are not permanent. But the mind craves permanence. So if we crave grandma and grandpa or mom or dad or brothers and sisters to be permanent, when they die, your mind will be sorrowful and grieving. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings, but oftentimes people think that it's the love that's causing the painful feelings, because it's the people who are closest to you that your mind is attached to and you're holding on to them. And now when they die, that's where you're sad or frustrated. You can see this if you've ever been to a wedding and people around you are crying and grieving. Maybe brother or sister is getting married or some friend is getting married and people are crying and grieving. That's because brother or sister is going off into the world with somebody else. It's like, hold on a second. That's my brother. That's my sister, right? How dare this person take them away from me, right? And mom and dad and brothers and sisters are crying, right? Because this person's going off into the world with someone else and they realize their relationship with this person is not permanent, right? Or if you could think back to when you went to university, you got dropped off, or maybe like when you were a kid and you got dropped off at school, or if you've had kids and you've dropped them off at school, you can see that maybe your children were crying, or maybe you were crying, right? When you got dropped off, right? Because the mind was holding on and craving for this relationship to be permanent, right? But the fact is that these relationships are all impermanent. I'll give you an example that doesn't include relationships. Let's just say that you got a brand new car and you saved up a lot of money for this car and you drove it off the parking lot and everybody was like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's got such a nice car. Wow, that's amazing. And you're just so proud driving your new car and you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh man, you might be devastated. You might be so frustrated or angry. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be angry. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence. It wants this car to look permanently beautiful. And now when you experience this scratch, that's impermanence. Your mind doesn't understand impermanence in the unenlightened state. So it gets angry, it gets frustrated. But the fact is that this car is going to change. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And as long as your mind's craving permanence, when you're experiencing impermanence, your mind doesn't like that. And it experiences painful feelings. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Or you could say the mind does not like impermanence. It does not like change. Think about your life. All the times where you've had the biggest challenges in your life, you can see that there was some change that was going on. You might have changed your living location. You might have changed schools. You might have changed your relationships. You might have been changing jobs. During the time where you experienced the most change, that's where you've struggled the most in life, because the mind doesn't like that change, right? So you can look at this for yourself and see the truth, because what I'm sharing with you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's your craving, your desire, your longing, your yearning. But don't take my word for it. Don't believe anything I say. You need to be able to independently verify it for yourself. Look at your life. Maybe in the last day or two, or last week, or last month. Look at a time when you've been angry or frustrated, irritated or annoyed. Like I said, it might have been this morning, it might have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because what the mind's going to tend to do is it's going to want to blame other people. And you might have been blaming somebody else. You might have been pushing people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on people. But now look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind wanted? What were you expecting? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you were angry or frustrated or sad. And if you need help to be able to see this, let me know. Because plenty of students have asked me questions over the years. One time a student asked me, they said, David, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And when I came home, my wife had this craft project all over the house. And when I walked in, I got frustrated and angry. How did my mind cause the discontentedness? My wife's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be discontent? No, she didn't. Your mind was craving permanence. When you went to work, your house looked a certain way, and you were expecting the house to look exactly the same way when you came home. And it's just not possible. You live in an impermanent world. It's not possible for your house to look exactly the same way. So it's your own mind that's causing that. And just like the house couldn't look that way permanently, this craft project that your wife has all over the house, that's not permanent either. She's going to put it away, and maybe you might help her. Maybe if you went to the airport really wanting to go to Thailand and you were so excited to go to Thailand and you showed up and your flight was delayed or canceled, you might have been frustrated or angry, right? Because the mind wants every plane to take off on time, especially the ones you were on, right? That the mind has this permanence. But the thing is that there's going to be a weather issue, there's going to be a crew issue, there's going to be a maintenance issue. Something is going to stop this plane from taking off on time. It's going to happen. If you travel enough, you're going to meet with delays. It's going to happen because of impermanence. Every single flight can't take off on time. It's just not possible. But if your mind craves permanence, when you show up to the airport, you'll be frustrated and angry when your flight's not leaving on time. This is your own mind that's causing that. So you need to be able to see this second noble truth, that it's true, that it's your own craving, desire, attachment. Because when you don't understand the second noble truth, this is where you'll push people aside, or you'll push the situation aside. This is aversion, right? Or you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you'll put your expectations on people. And as long as you do this, you can't live harmoniously with all people, because it's only a matter of time before someone does something opposite of what you expect. It's only a matter of time. So there's a better way here. The Buddha teaches you how to get to complete peace and joy, because the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you understand that it's your own mind that's causing the discontentedness, that it's craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause, well, if you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. Right? If you eliminate the longing, yearning, and chasing after things, trying to form your inner feelings on whether you get it or not, you'll eliminate the effect. But your mind's not going to be over here on the other side, because sometimes people say, well, if I'm not craving and I'm not longing, yearning, and chasing after things, wouldn't I be bored and dull and lonely and just kind of like lazy? And the answer is no. That's the opposite side. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. And now you can maintain your peace and you can maintain your joy. But as long as you're chasing, and forming your inner feelings based on whether you get it or not, you can't be permanently peaceful, because you can only be happy when you get what you want. It's kind of like if my mom does this, my brothers and sisters do this, my boss does this, the weather is this, my bank account is this, then I'll be happy. So your amount of happiness shrinks. You kind of sabotage your ability to be happy. This is why some people are old and grumpy, right? Not everybody, but some people are old and grumpy because they have so many expectations. They want so many things, and they can't be fulfilled all the time. So you don't have to be old and grumpy. You can be old and cheerful, right? But it's your choice, right? So if you eliminate this longing, yearning, this forming your inner feelings based on whether you get what you want or not, you can eliminate your discontentedness. The way to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments is in the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is explaining that the path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to guide you in training your mind so that you're not longing, yearning, and chasing after things. But you're also not over here where you're dull and lazy and lethargic either. You have motivation, you have ambition, you have enthusiasm to walk towards certain goals, objectives, or interests that you have. So the eightfold path is the complete, perfect plan that's going to teach you how to eliminate craving, desire, attachments. It starts with right view. The right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's your craving, desire, attachment. If you have wrong view, you will blame other people for the feelings that you experience. And if you blame other people, you'll never eliminate your anger and your frustration and your sadness. That's why you haven't been able to eliminate it up to this point. Because what you'll do is you'll push people away, you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you'll put your expectations on people, trying to control people. Because the mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. And it thinks if I can just scare people into doing things my way, or I can pressure them into doing things my way, then everything will be perfect. But the problem is that there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. It's just not possible. The unenlightened mind thinks that my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And if you do it my way, everything will be perfect, right? But you can't experience life that way. 8 billion people aren't going to do things your way. So as soon as somebody comes into your life that's doing things differently than you, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So right view is to have the right view of the world, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment. Wrong view would be to blame other people. So the way that you practice right view is that now and forever, for the rest of your life, whenever you're discontent, instead of looking at other people to blame them, look inward and try to figure out, what are you craving? What are you longing and yearning for? What do you want? Because if you can figure that out, you can eliminate it. The Buddha is going to give you the teachings of how to eliminate it through training the mind. There's 3 individual sections here: the wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. The wisdom section starts with right view, where you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because if you don't understand that, why would you ever come to the temple? Why would you ever learn? Why would you ever meditate? Why would you ever train your own mind if everybody else is the problem, right? If everyone else is the problem, you go home. Everyone else should be here, right? But if you understand right view, you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And the beauty in that is that you can eliminate it. If it was other people that was causing these feelings, you would never be able to eliminate them. But when you understand right view, then you know that, I can eliminate these feelings because I'm the one who's causing it. It doesn't mean the other people aren't doing something unwise, because surely somebody could be doing something unwise, but that's not what's causing your mind to be discontent. So this is what I have to share with you guys here on Right View, is just the beginning of the teachings of the Buddha and helping you to understand these 4 noble truths. If you guys would like to learn more beyond this, that's where you get into the Eightfold Path. That's what I'm going to be teaching tomorrow at 9 o'clock, where I'm going to go through each individual one of these, and they don't take the same amount of time to teach. Each one of these, I will be teaching what each one of these are, using the original words of the Buddha, so you can see this complete, perfect plan that he taught of how to transform your mind. But what I'm going to do is see if you guys have any questions on this before we end for today. You guys have anything you would like to ask about the 4 Noble Truths, either here or online? Remember, if you guys could use the mics, and online, you guys can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Any questions? Let me see if we have anything online. I think we have a question coming in online here on Zoom. Okay. So this person is asking, what about the idea of spirit? How does the cycle of rebirth happen without the idea of something permanent that persists, like a soul or spirit? So the Buddha never taught that there is a spirit or there isn't a spirit. And the word that the Buddha used was samsara. That's what we have in the Pali Canon. And in English, people have been translating this to the cycle of rebirth. But if you look at how the Buddha describes this process, there's nothing being reborn. It's actually a new existence every single time. It's a completely new body and a completely new mind every single time. So a better way to think of this is the cycle of new existence rather than the cycle of rebirth, because there's no soul or spirit that's going from one life to the next. So I would encourage you to think of it as a cycle of new existence. And I do teach in other classes how this whole process is taking place, but I think for today, I'll leave that off. But if you'd like to message me or you'd like to see some of the other classes I've taught, I can send you those links. Just message me and I'll help you to be able to understand this whole process if you'd like. But a better way to think about it is the cycle of new existence, because there's actually nothing being reborn when an individual is experiencing that. But if you get to enlightenment, there is no rebirth. The Buddha only describes rebirth for an individual who actually hasn't gotten to enlightenment. So any other questions here you guys would like to ask? No? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to end with one last thing, because what I'm been teaching you guys is what are the teachings of the Buddha. What the teachings of the Buddha are is it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's craving, it's longing, it's yearning. Oftentimes we might have expectations of our parents, and you might feel painful feelings when your parents don't do things your way. It's not your parents that are causing that. It's your own mind. And you can overcome that where you get to the point where you understand that they do things differently than you. And that's okay. That's just impermanence. But if we have a craving for things to be a certain way, we will be upset or frustrated when it's not being done that way. So if you would like to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again, that's what the teachings of the Buddha are for. Because there's intellectual learning, like is what we were doing today. And then there's reflection to independently verify. But then there's practice. You need to be able to practice the teachings on an ongoing basis. Because it's really easy to sit here in a classroom like this and talk about how wonderful it would be to be loving and kind and warm and gentle to everybody around you. But it's a whole other thing to go outside and actually do it. And that's why you need consistent ongoing training. And that's what the teachings of the Buddha are here for you to be able to do. So if you're done with the anger, you're done with the sadness, you're done with the frustration, you're tired of broken relationships over and over and over again, and you're looking for a solution, that's what the teachings of the Buddha are for. If you would like to learn how to get to this peace and joy where you can have harmonious relationships with everyone around you, the teachings of the Buddha are here to help you. And I've removed all the obstacles to make it really easy for you in terms of the books, the videos, the podcasts, the personal guidance, classes, courses, retreats. It's all available at no cost. And you can do that while you're here in Chiang Mai. But even as you travel, you can tune in through our live stream. Or if you can't even attend the live stream that we have over different courses and different programs, you can watch the recordings because everything's recorded on YouTube, Facebook, and on our podcast. So there's really nothing standing in your way other than your own effort, your own energy, and your own dedication. If you would like to learn on this path, you are your own individual practitioner. I'm like a tour guide pointing out for you the things that you need to learn, but each individual practitioner is seeking wisdom. You are your own individual practitioner. You're not a devotee, you're not a follower or anything like that. You are an individual seeking wisdom and to understand the path. And a teacher is like a tour guide providing you the resources and pointing out for you the things that you need to learn. But it's each individual student who's choosing to do that work. So if you'd like to do that work, I'm motivated to help you, but you just need to decide for yourself that that's what you would like to do. So I'll just end by thanking all of you guys for being interested to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment, because this is the very best thing you could ever do is get to the peace and joy that is enlightenment. So if you'd like to join any of these future classes or anything, you can look at our bulletin board over there. Also, our website is a real nice hub where it has all the things that you need, like our events calendar and all of our books, and everything you need is right there on our website. And you can always reach out to me as well. So again, thank you for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Whatever you decide to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee-kap. Sawadee-kap. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.